Respectfully, I ask that we all take our seats and hold ourselves in readiness. front. They are beginning to look like the teeth of a growing child. I beg you in all the names of God. Please, all our friends at the back, could you please come forward and fill the seats in front? Thank you very much for your African cooperation. We have 2 minutes to do that, please. All our members at the back, please come forward. Please move over to the second and third rows. If you're sitting in the place of a high commissioner, you may become one. So please, except for the front row seats that are reserved for high commissioners, ambassadors, and chargé d'affaires. Ladies and gentlemen, we covet your cooperation. Please move over. Please come to the front. Thank you very much. Thank you for your cooperation. You're far too kind. My friends who are gatekeepers at the entrance, please let them in. Thank you very much. We still need to fill some more, please. All our friends at the back, please. Let's do this as a big favor for ST, please. Thank you very much for your cooperation. the anthems of the Afreximbank and the African Union.
From within the shores of the motherland and far beyond, with dignity we rise and we build up reach for all. With integrity, respect, trust, excellence, commitment, creativity. We will build for Africa's prosperity. We will build for the now and posterity. As we standing together, we prepare to forever. We are transforming Africa's trade. Oh, we are Afreximbank. We will build for Africa's prosperity. We will build for the now and posterity. As we standing together, we prepare to forever. We are transforming Africa's trade. Oh, we are Afreximbank. Salam, Oramah, salam, Oramah, salam.
We begin in your name, O great God of Africa, giving thanks for the rain you've provided. The sky has spoken to the earth, and the earth will answer with life. As this gentle rain nourishes our seed, we pray that may our words here nourish new ideas, and let this gathering be fertile ground as we commit to creating that one single Africa, the Africa we want. We ask this of you, the great God of Africa, in faith and with thanksgiving. Amen. Please be seated. And now, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the words of our ancestors, the gods, and our elders delivered to us by the writer king who sips communion wine with the gods, Nana Asase.
When a child is called before his elders, he dare not name titles or name names lest he misses one and be made to pay a fine. And so I salute you, my elders. I salute you, revered great beards, who have rinsed your beards in the dew to lose the pigment of youth. Even my elders who taught no beards, who have picked all of life's experiences from whom we have come to learn. If I miss a line, forgive me, I'm still a child learning the ropes of the world and the ways of my people. And so today, I wear time and memory. I wear technology and tradition. I wear the future we aspire to have and what our reality truly is. When the two are put together, today we have gathered to celebrate greatness. Born at the crossroads of dreams right here in Africa. My people, you see, when an old man plants a coconut tree, when he is way past the prime of his youth, truly he knows that he might not even live to eat a single fruit or have succor from its juice. But you know, he gladly does it knowing that the future will drink, and when they have heaved a sigh of relief, they will call his name with a blessing. And so the steps we take today will determine how the future refers to us. Africa, do you have your right hand? When you point your finger at an elder, It is so many things at once. It could be a blessing. It could even be an insult. But you see, whichever one it is depends on the kind of name he has earned. And so they say when a child learns how to wash his hands well, he dines with the elders. What happens to an elder who does not know how to wash his hands, my people? And so who is an elder? As we blend tradition and technology, we learn that the elder is Africa, who has started to take giant steps, following after men who have dared to sleep and dream and wake up, lend feet to their dreams, running. But you see, like the dance Takai from my people says, you step forward, you step back, and you look, and you draw others after you, knowing that as a leader, where you stand, there's a space somebody held before you. And so after you, so many more will have to hold it. So while you walk in these shoes, you are simply holding the present in trust for the future. Ago. 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 Africa. We have a university right here in this building. By the dint of technology and by the dint of knowledge, we have all of it embodied in one man. Ladies and gentlemen, as we learn to celebrate our own, we will not clap our hands. We will not beat animal skins. We will beat our chest when we mention the name Oramah. We will beat his name, Oramah, spare me, O-R-A, and it could be an African oracle that says, we can point this in the face of the world and say, hey, built right here at home from Ile Ife is one of our very own that we are proud of. My people, if we could bear our chest, which we cannot show to the rest of the world, but of course they can see our chest, how we hold our head up high. My confidence is not born from too much food. It's not born from too much drink. It is born from my footing. When a man is sure of his footing, he dares life to bring on its worst. African can call life to bring on its worst, because today we are seeing the manifestation of our dreams in the AfCFTA. My people, it takes one man, one warrior, to meet the elephant at the exit of the town, knock him with his head, and drag it to the center, so that all of us can own a part and say, we killed the elephant. My people, they say my words are heavy. It's simply because our dreams are heavier. We have gathered. Is your right hand yours? You want to beat your chest with me? Ladies and gentlemen, his name, I call him the President Oramah. Let us beat our chest. Not your hands, please, our chests. Our chest, our chest, our chest, our chest. But you see, a child is not held in contempt for calling his father's oath out of turn. And truly, who is a child who cannot interpret his own father's dance? Your Excellency Wamkelemene, I salute you. I salute you who is learning to rinse your beard to lose the pigment of youth, so that one day, when we have taken our seat, you will dare to sit in the seats of the fathers. But Africa has elders, not elders who just boast in titles, elders who hold wisdom that is seeping down into the dreams and the visions that the youth seek to hold. I know I have spoken well because the writings are clear on the wall for all to see. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fireside at the center of the world, where we have this communion of ourselves. Thank you.
The writer king who sips communion wine with the gods, Nanasase. And so we shall spell the name Oramah. Let's spell it together. An orchestrator of African integration. Revolutionary architect of financial systems. An advocate for industrial and creative empowerment. A master builder of strategic partnerships and global Africa. An astute navigator of crises. A hero of trade finance innovation. Let's please put our hands together and celebrate. My name is Jerry Ajololo, and today it is with such delight I stand in the name of the Secretary General of the AfCFTA, His Excellency Wamkelemene, together with the entire management and staff of the AfCFTA, to say a very good morning to you, the President and Chairperson of the Board of Directors of ours, the Afreximbank, Your Excellency Professor Benedict Oramah. Good morning to you, Excellencies, High Commissioners and Ambassadors. Good morning, officials of the government of Ghana, our development partners, senior executives of Afreximbank, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, and global Africa, watching us live on our Facebook and YouTube platforms on the AfCFTA Secretariat. I say good morning to you and welcome to this great day in history, where ours is a public lecture by our distinguished African public servant, the President and Chair of the Board of the Afreximbank, to us, the staff of the AfCFTA Secretariat, together with our friends, development partners, and members of the diplomatic corps right here at the Africa Trade House in Accra. Today will go down in history as a masterclass in visionary leadership. And I know with the lecture which will come forth, we will have a lot to glean from, and it will inspire our journey as we all commit to create that one single African market that we desire. In welcoming us, it's my pleasure to invite our host, who would officially introduce our guest speaker. Would you please, with joy in your heart, welcome His Excellency Wamkele Mene.
Thank you very much, Jerry, our program director. Your Excellencies, High Commissioners, ambassadors that are here, my colleagues from the Secretariat, and of course, our invited guests. It is truly a pleasure and an honor for us to have my senior brother, Professor Benedict Oramah, the President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Afreximbank. I think it is your maybe third visit to the AfCFTA Secretariat, but probably I would say the most important visit as we bid you farewell. It is really an honor to have you here, to welcome you to the AfCFTA Secretariat, and to celebrate your achievements over the last 10 years in your tenure as President and Chairman of the bank and Chairman of the Board of Afreximbank. Over the past 5 years, the AfCFTA Secretariat and Afreximbank have strengthened collaboration, moving beyond speeches, beyond aspirations, turning those aspirations into action. Together, we launched very important tools for trade that will enable the AfCFTA indeed to become a reality. Allow me a minute or two to mention some of the platforms and the tools that we have established over the period that President Oramah has been the President of Afreximbank. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which we launched here in Ghana, in Accra, in 2022, a truly transformational tool that will enable payment in local currency when trading across the African continent. The introduction of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System liberates Africa, liberates us from reliance for payments on platforms that take Africa's money elsewhere. Today, as we speak, there are over 20 central banks that have switched on to the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, and over 140 commercial banks that are trading on the platform. The Africa Trade Gateway, which is the first of its kind around the world, a digital platform that enables, in particular, small, medium enterprises to achieve business connectivity, market knowledge, and access to new markets across the continent from their regions or their countries. The AfCFTA Adjustment Fund, which also is the first of its kind, as we speak today, has been capitalized by Afreximbank by an amount of over $1 billion United States dollars, and we have committed to mobilize $10 billion in the near future. The AfCFTA Automotive Fund, $1 billion to support manufacturers of components who seek to trade in the automotive sector, who seek to participate rather in the automotive sector across the continent of Africa, contributing to the industrial development of our continent. The African Textiles Renaissance Plan, a $5 billion commitment to ensure value addition of our cotton to produce clothing, textiles in our own continent, job creation being the #1 priority, as well as industrial development. The Africa Trade and Distribution Company's commitment of over $700 billion to assist companies in Africa that seek to take advantage of the AfCFTA, building capacity at national level and regional level for intra-Africa trade. And finally, the African Textiles Renaissance Plan, the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, which we recently convened in Algeria, in Algiers, from the 4th to the 10th of September. A very successful event in terms of which transactions of over $48.3 billion trade and investment transactions were concluded. These are not just numbers, and these are not just programs or facilities. These are commitments that express a single vision, and that vision is a continent that is self-reliant, a continent that has economic resilience, a continent that trades with herself, and a continent that invests in her own industrial development and shapes her own future. Without the leadership of Professor Oramah, I doubt very much that all of these achievements would have been recorded over the last 10 years. His tenacity, there are two requirements for leadership: a vision and execution. I believe that Professor Oramah has clearly demonstrated that in order to succeed as a leader, you must implement both a vision and execution are the key priorities for success. In difficult times, Professor Oramah's leadership was called upon. In 2020, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Assembly of Heads of States and Government of the African Union called upon him and designated him to be the leader for Africa's response to the vaccine crisis. Under President Oramah's leadership, the continent of Africa was able to mobilize through the vaccine procurement platform to mobilize in less than a month over $200 million for the procurement of vaccines. In addition, that contribution that he made to our continent positioned many governments in Africa, and indeed many individual Africans, to be resilient, to resist the COVID-19 pandemic, and to enable Africa to rise up in a time of an unprecedented public health crisis. And so today, we are fortunate to have him here with us to celebrate his achievements and to also learn from him, learn about mistakes that we made, learn about achievements, and how we can continue on this path of achievement. Working together under his leadership, we have been able to deepen regional value chains. As I mentioned, significant investments in trade finance, in agro-processing, in pharmaceuticals, as well as in the creative industries. The Secretariat is committed to continuing to work with Afreximbank as we implement the AfCFTA and transition from negotiations to implementation. Past leaders of Afreximbank, President Christopher Edordu, President Jean-Louis Ekra, of course, laid a very strong foundation for Afreximbank to be where it is today. And I often marvel at how, at all events of Afreximbank, the entire current and past leadership of Afreximbank is always in attendance, which demonstrates a clear vision in terms of succession planning and where the bank seeks to go. It is therefore no wonder that under his able leadership, President Oramah was able to grow the bank's assets from $5 billion in the year 2015 to $37 billion in the year 2024. And so, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors and High Commissioners, we are truly privileged to have him here to hear about the tenure, the challenges, the successes during his 10 years at the helm of Afreximbank. We, of course, congratulate Dr. George Elombi, the incoming president of Afreximbank, who will assume the position on the 25th of October in Cairo in just a few weeks' time. I want to pledge to him also that we, the AfCFTA Secretariat, will fully support his vision, and we will continue the strong collaboration that we began under the leadership of President Oramah. I should end by saying that when I was elected to this position, there were many who doubted what was to be done and whether or not it could be achieved. There were many who said, what a calamity this is that the African Union has committed by electing a baby to lead an ambitious continental project. President Oramah was the very first leader to express full support in my capability to lead. He was the very first one to express his support, not just in writing, in a letter, but through a grant of $5 million that enabled us to start our work immediately after I was elected. And so, this is an important point to end at, that our successes as the AfCFTA, and I dare say, as the only flagship project of the African Union that has successfully taken off, it is not because of me, it is because of the support that we have received from Afreximbank and the partnership that has grown from strength to strength that enabled us to record all of the achievements that we have recorded when there were many doubting Thomases, when the critics were in abundance, and when, of course, even some among us as Africans doubted our resolve and resoluteness to achieve the success that objectively we have achieved today. And so I want to pay tribute to my senior brother as he exits the leadership role of Afreximbank and passes the baton to Dr. George Elombi. I want to say to him in your presence that I am grateful for his support. I am grateful for his commitment to ensuring that our continent invests in industrial development, invests in trade supporting infrastructure, and enables us as Africans to walk proudly amongst other nations and be proud of our own self-sufficiency, particularly in trying times such as the COVID-19 pandemic, which we successfully navigated, as I mentioned, in no small measure because of your contribution, President. And so today we celebrate truly an outstanding African whose contribution to the development of our continent will be recorded in history as an illustrious contribution. So ladies and gentlemen, please, I want you to join me in welcoming President Oramah. Thank you very much.
We're grateful to you, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA, Your Excellency Wamkele Mene, for those warm words of welcome. Your Excellency, if it pleases you, allow us at the Secretariat to also add our voice to what you've said through a short video. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please lend your attention to the screen.
Africa's integration journey has been guided by visionaries who understood that trade is more than exchange. It is the foundation of prosperity. Among them stands Professor Benedict Oramah. Under his leadership, Afreximbank has partnered with the AfCFTA Secretariat to move from vision to action, establishing instruments that give real meaning to the AfCFTA. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System has removed currency barriers, allowing trade to flow in local currencies across borders. The AfCFTA Adjustment Fund has given governments and industries the support they need to adapt, ensuring that no state party is left behind.
The adjustment fund is intended to be available to those people, including the private sector, to enable them to prepare to take advantage. Also available to governments to enable them adopt the protocols that have been approved.
The Intra-African Trade Fair has created a marketplace of opportunities, connecting entrepreneurs, innovators and investors while showcasing Africa's story to the world.
The Intra-African Trade Fair, through its 4 editions since 2018, has proven to be a solid platform for launching winning ideas and initiatives.
Beyond these, Afreximbank has also championed innovative guarantees to de-risk trade, supported industrialization and export development, and launched platforms such as Canex, empowering Africa's creative industries as part of the AfCFTA's wider vision. These tools carry a deeper message that Africa's future will be secured through Africans trading, producing, and investing in one another. Today, the AfCFTA Secretariat pays homage to Professor Oramah, a visionary leader, a trusted partner, and a tireless champion of intra-African trade.
The entire AfCFTA Secretariat is pleased with the help support, partnership, visionary leadership of President Oramah, President of Afreximbank. For so many years, this wonderful visionary leader has supported the continent of Africa, changed the financial and economic fortunes of this continent. And today, the Secretariat of the AfCFTA present this beautiful gesture to you, Your Excellency Oramah.
His work reminds us that the AfCFTA is more than an agreement. It is a living framework for shared prosperity.
The AfCFTA is an initiative that sees squarely within what the bank was created to do. The creation of the bank anticipated that day when the continent will create a continental free trade area. The AfCFTA created an immense opportunity for the bank to once again demonstrate its relevance towards delivering the Agenda 2063, the Africa we want.
Professor Benedict Oramah, we salute your leadership, your partnership, and your enduring contribution to the creation of one African market, one African future.
I foresee a tectonic shift in the dynamics of Africa's trade as Africans begin to exploit the rich and diverse African market. As the continent becomes a sustainable market, private investments in infrastructure will follow.
May the legacy of your vision continue to inspire Africa's generations to come.
AfCFTA Secretariat. The beauty of today's engagement is a fireside chat which will happen immediately after the lecture. It will be moderated by a distinguished communications expert with a special focus on Africa's socio-economic development, Madame Anita Esking. And now, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, speaking on the nexus between trade finance, industrial development, and economic integration in Africa, the role of Afreximbank, the Secretary General, and the AfCFTA are pleased to give to you, Global Africa, His Excellency, Professor Benedict Oramah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Master of Ceremony. Excellency Wankele Mene, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, Excellencies, High Commissioners and Ambassadors, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished colleagues at the AfCFTA and also at Afreximbank, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I would not want to bore you with the theory of the link between finance, trade, and economic integration, because you can find that in many books. So today, I would like to talk about the practical implementation of that linkage on our own continent, so that we move from theory to practice, as that is what will make it possible for us to replicate what is good, what has worked and what has not, and to drop what has not worked. So it's a privilege to be here today to deliver this lecture on a topic that goes to the very heart of Africa's economic future. topic which you already know, the nexus between trade finance, industrial development, and economic integration in Africa. And to also reflect on the role of Afreximbank there too. I would like to thank the Secretary General, my dear brother, for the kind invitation and very, very high honor. And at the outset, commend him and his dedicated colleagues at the Secretariat who stand on the front lines of the battle for Africa's economic emancipation. As I reflected on the subject matter of today's lecture, I recall that day in February 2020 when I had the privilege of being a member of the panel that interviewed candidates for the position of Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat. It was a remarkable day. There we were, confronted with a process that identified a very young man as the best candidate for the position. Many in the panel, and I tell SG, including me, had doubts. While I recognized that competence was critical and that we must have it in such a pivotal institution, while we all recognize that His Excellency Wankelemene stood shoulder and head above all the other candidates, I personally worried about the politics. Can a highly technical trade lawyer at the same time be politically savvy to navigate the minefields in the African Union politics? Amidst all the doubt, something profound struck me. When asked how his first few days would look like if indeed elected, the candidate, SG Wankelemene, said that upon taking office, that the first call he would make would be to Afreximbank, because he didn't see AfCFTA agenda succeeding without the marriage between Afreximbank and the Secretariat. 5 years hence, we gather at the headquarters of the now fully established AfCFTA Secretariat, with that young man, His Excellency Mr. Wankelemene, at the helm. 5 years hence, he has been proven right that you cannot make a success of a trade agreement of the nature, scope, and size of the AfCFTA without trusted, committed financial institutions as your partners. Mr. Wankelemene's views demonstrated an uncanny understanding of the drivers of Africa's economic problems. That is, we never understand that it's all about money. We always think that there's somebody who is going to put their hands in their pocket and bring the money to solve our problems. It also demonstrated an informed view of the role of financing in promoting trade and regional integration. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Secretary General Wankele Mene had remarkable foresight beyond what many will see as we interviewed that day. But I dare say that it was a foresight born out of a clear understanding of the road ahead for a Secretary General of the AfCFTA. We may sit back today and absorb what has been achieved as if they were just ordinary. But I invite you to teleport yourselves to January 2020 to begin to understand the transformational changes we've seen. Whether it is the record time in negotiating and adopting the relevant protocols to the AfCFTA, or the creation of enabling instruments, such as the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, the AfCFTA Adjustment Fund, the Collaborative Transit Guarantee Scheme, the Africa Trade and Distribution Company, the Africa Trade Gateway and Digital Systems, and so on. The success has been profound. These achievements collectively demonstrated a clear nexus between trade finance, industrial development, and economic integration. Allow me, therefore, to share with you the green shoots of that nexus that Secretary General Wankele Mene unleashed on that fateful day in 2020. I refer to it as fateful because when the history of African economic development is written, it will be recorded as the moment when international diplomacy and bureaucracy merged with African finance to define a path for Africa's economic transformation. As you're all aware, at the time of establishing the AfCFTA Secretariat, the world was hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, with global consequences, including cuts in development assistance and commercial financing. Yet, the AfCFTA had to proceed. There was a need to set up the Secretariat and hire staff in an environment where participating states were struggling. There was a need to negotiate critical protocols to the AfCFTA. There was a need to finalize AfCFTA enabling initiatives, and also there was also an urgent need to provide intra-African trade finance. In the past, all these activities would have stalled because the managers of the AfCFTA Secretariat would have been traveling around the world, cap in hand, begging for handouts. This time, the management of the AfCFTA Secretariat took a different approach. Mindful that we must take our own development into our own hands, they approached Afreximbank as a sister institution. And because Afreximbank had and still has the capacity to support, a lot was achieved within a very short space of time. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, I would like to list a few of the achievements made possible by the partnership between Afreximbank and the AfCFTA Secretariat. That partnership between capital and trade policy and trade finance. Allow me to start by saying that even before the establishment of AfCFTA in 2020, Afreximbank's impact was already being felt. Mindful of intra-African trade finance gap, which amounted to over 40 billion per annum at that time, we launched an intra-African trade strategy in 2016 with a commitment to lend $20 billion by 2022 on a revolving basis. That strategy was successful as we exceeded the target and, more importantly, made intra-African trade a bankable proposition. We also made other major interventions. And I'm pleased to outline some of them, because some of those, the key ones, were done in partnership with the Secretariat. The first thing we did, I will point out here with regard to that partnership, is the financial support for the Secretariat. Our support was not just the rhetorics. We saw the AfCFTA Secretariat as our sister institution. In fact, when we go back to the story of the establishment of Afreximbank, it was anticipated to be the engine that will help drive regional integration and the continental free trade area. So it was natural that we supported the Secretariat. So we made substantial financial commitments towards that. Through grant support, which we provided quite early, as the Secretary General mentioned, and we continue to provide on the basis of multi-year grant framework. We're doing this because we believe that an initiative of that nature that we all look forward to as a solution to the problems we have cannot be left to those who will decide whether we merit support or not. It is our problem and we must solve it. So that is why we continue to support the Secretariat through grant financing. And we do this not only to support its operations, but also the programs that the Secretariat runs. Some of the things that the grant supported in the past few years included the negotiations that have led to the conclusion of key protocols, the phases 1 and 2. Afreximbank also seconded experts and provided technical assistance to the Secretariat, underscoring an unwavering commitment to ensuring a strong Secretariat capacitated to drive the implementation of the agreement. Few trade agreements in the world have the luxury of a dedicated financial institution, aligning its resources to propel them. The AfCFTA does, in the form of Afreximbank. We also have been supporting and continue to support trade finance and also providing other trade facilitation initiatives. As we all know, a significant impediment to intra-African trade has been the difficulty at securing trade finance and payment guarantees. Because of the colonial history, we tend to trust others more than we trust ourselves. We tend to do business, to be comfortable to do business with others rather than with ourselves. But to begin to bring those things down, a financial institution is needed to take the risks and show the way, so that subsequently businesses will begin to understand that the risks are not as high as they are made to believe. So to address this issue of lack of finance and payment guarantees, Afreximbank launched the Trade Facilitation Program, under which it has onboarded over 500 of Africa's 600 regulated commercial banks onto its platform. Through this program, Afreximbank provides these banks with letters of credit confirmation lines and trade credit limits, targeting an aggregate of $8 billion in credit limits to support intra-African trade transactions. Today, over $6 billion has been granted supporting intra-African trade across the continent. By de-risking letters of credit and providing confirmation lines, the bank is effectively integrating Africa's banking system in support of the AfCFTA. A trader in one African country can now more easily transact with a buyer or supplier in another, knowing that Afreximbank's umbrella of credit assurance stands behind the deal. This mitigates counterparty risk and builds trust amongst traders and banks across borders, a crucial ingredient for boosting trade volumes and also making sure that supply chains begin to emerge. The partnership with the AfCFTA Secretariat creates opportunities we support with our financing. And in fact, on many occasions, the Secretary General and his team referred transactions to us to support. Because through the demonstration effect, that we begin to make our people know that intra-African trade is indeed bankable. Another intervention is the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS. To truly integrate our markets, we must also integrate our payments. The lack of convertibility of approximately 42 currencies has long hindered commerce. It's not possible to trade amongst ourselves if we have 42 payment systems, 42 currencies, hardly talking to one another. Today, before the introduction of PAPS, an exporter in one country will have to pay somebody in another country through a third country which is not in Africa. We saw what that meant even when the Ukraine crisis came, the issue of payment sovereignty. Apart from the issue of payment sovereignty, we have the issue of cost, which I will outline. There was, I think it was Assassin, that said in Abuja, or somebody else, that why should the Naira, if somebody wanted to pay somebody in Ghana, then the Naira will go and take permission from the dollar to go and pay somebody in Accra. The PAPS is intended to stop this. Indeed, the aggregate annual cost of such remittances when we go through the old system is about $5 billion or more than the GDP of 12 African countries. So every year we pay out $5 billion just to make payment from one country to the other. in Africa, not that we are paying to somewhere else. To solve this problem, Afreximbank, in collaboration with the AfCFTA Secretariat and African Union Commission, championed the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. PAPS is a revolutionary financial market infrastructure that enables instant cross-border payments in African currencies. Afreximbank provided a financial backbone for PAPS, committing $3 billion to PAPS continent-wide settlement and clearing. This is to ensure that all participants are guaranteed payment finality. Since its commercial launch in January 2022 in Accra, PAPS has gained strong momentum, with approximately just under 20 African central banks and 150 commercial banks joining the platform to date. This means that a trader can now pay and be paid across countries using local currency. A game changer expected to save Africa the $5 billion it costs us today to continue the old system. And PAPS is more than a payment system. It is the financial rail, the payment rail of our integration, laying the foundation for a future where our own currencies can smoothly transact within a unified system. PAPS now serves as a platform for an African currency trading platform, which is actually growing very rapidly, and enabling participants to use African currencies to bid for other African currencies. And we are really pleased that many non-African participants doing business in Africa have joined this currency trading platform. We've also launched the PAPS card, which enables retail payments across Africa in African currencies. So that when you have the PAPS card and you want to travel from Accra to Nairobi, in Nairobi you will spend your cedi. You do not need to have your account blocked, your US dollar account blocked, because you are traveling from Accra to Nairobi. We hope that as that card expands across the continent, you will also avail yourself of the opportunity to carry the card. And the beauty of the card is that we have a partnership with Discover. So the card works in Africa and you pay your own currency when you travel anywhere in Africa. But when you travel abroad, you also use the card as you use Visa and MasterCard today. So there's no need to have two cards. Another intervention we've been able to do together with the AfCFTA Secretariat is the Inter-African Trade Fair. One of the oft-cited barriers to intra-African commerce is lack of infrastructure. We agree that infrastructure is a key constraint to intra-African trade. But when we look at the whole picture, our conclusion is that lack of infrastructure is a constraint to Africa's trade overall. But the stock of infrastructure today carries more than $1 trillion of Africa's trade. Depending on commodity prices, can be $1 trillion, $1.2, $1.4 trillion. The question is, Why is intra-African trade share of that $1 trillion just $200 million? Sorry, $200 billion. Why is it not $500 billion? And that is because we lack information about what happens across our borders. A business person in Ghana is more likely to tell you what is happening in Guangzhou or somewhere in Europe than what is happening in Côte d'Ivoire, just across the border. And when somebody in Côte d'Ivoire wants to supply something to a business person here in Ghana, that business person will see only risks. Whereas, if that person is supplying from Mumbai, the business person in Accra will not be so concerned. It will just look normal. And that's because we don't know what is going on. We don't know ourselves. We don't know our business people. We don't have information about our markets. The African businesses often do not know who their potential partners or markets on the continent are. And this has historical linkage. And that history is traceable to colonialism, which had a strategy of divide and conquer, making sure that the countries do not talk to themselves. But those years are long gone. Afreximbank, working with the AfCFTA Secretariat and the African Union Commission, have addressed this through the landmark Inter-African Trade Fair, conceived as a one-stop marketplace to connect African buyers and sellers and showcase investment opportunities. The IATF is held biennially and has quickly become the continent's premier trade exhibition. And the results speak for themselves. The 4 editions held to date since 2018 have generated over $160 billion in trade and investment deals and attracted over 200,000 visitors. IATF has rightly been dubbed the AfCFTA marketplace. It is now undoubtedly the premier trade and investment platform on the continent. And the Secretary General gave a summary of the outcome of the most recent, which was held in Algiers between the 4th and 10th of September this year, where over 112,000 visitors came, over 2,000 exhibitors, and an updated deals table came to $49.5 billion. We also worked together with the AfCFTA Secretariat to set up the AfCFTA Adjustment Fund. As you know, while free trade brings long-term benefits, in the short term, there can be adjustment costs, such as tariff revenue losses for governments who traditionally use tariffs as a source of revenue rather than simple trade policy. There can also be competitiveness pressures on certain industries. Recognizing this, the African Union mandated the creation of an AfCFTA Adjustment Fund to help countries and businesses adapt smoothly to the new trading regime. In the past, this resolution of the African Union we have joined the over 90% that get passed and nothing happens. Because the question will be, who would bring the $10 billion required to get this going? Who are the people to put this whole fund together? So we will see all the problems, and we will not attempt to find the solutions. But this time we are lucky to have SG and his team here in the AfCFTA Secretariat, who immediately with our own team decided that if the AfCFTA was ever going to work, if countries were going to open their borders, that this would be critical. We also realized that African situation, the AfCFTA, is unique. We're not going to do copy and paste of other adjustment funds. We needed to develop something that will speak to the challenges we all are aware of. We realized that some of those existing adjustment funds were just foisted on us because we went elsewhere to get consultants to guide us. So we moved swiftly to set up a unique adjustment fund for Africa, and also to operationalize it. The fund we created has 3 verticals: a base fund to cushion government tariff revenue shortfalls and support implementation of the AfCFTA, a credit fund to support the private sector, improve efficiency and competitiveness, and also a general fund that focuses on development of trade-enabling infrastructure and the adoption of AfCFTA protocols. The base fund was designed to operate as a grant to qualifying countries. The credit fund designed to operate on a commercial basis, but the general fund was supposed to be concessional finance. Afreximbank itself has committed $1 billion as seed capital to the fund to support the credit fund. We've also committed $10 million grant to support the operationalization of the base fund. Afreximbank also provided the grant that led to the studies and the establishment work that the fund required. And together with the Secretariat, we have begun operating the adjustment fund. The first transaction was done a few months ago. And we must thank SG for the foresight in this. We also worked together to set up the African Trade Gateway. And that's because Afreximbank understands that trade in the 21st century is not just about physical goods crossing borders, but also about data, information, and efficiency. We also recognize that to bring down the 110 borders that divide us here on the continent, that digital technology will be required to vault them. Because that is what will help us quickly share information. So to complement the physical integration, Afreximbank, working with the AfCFTA Secretariat, has developed the African Trade Gateway, a digital ecosystem that integrates several trade facilitation platforms. Key components include a trade information portal, providing market intelligence on who is producing what and where. And this particular platform is also enabled by artificial intelligence, which supports the prediction of supply chains. Another platform that is on the gateway is a trade regulations portal, consolidating customs, procedures, standards, and regulations for each country. Prior to this gateway, if anybody wanted to do anything with any country in Africa, you have to go from website to search for information. And sometimes some countries do not have updated websites. So the effect is that most of the time, the bigger countries get more attention, whereas opportunities may lie in the very small countries. So what the portal has done is to integrate all of this so that somebody can come in one place and navigate all the regulations and customs procedures and all the policies that govern trade and investments on the continent. Also on the platform is the PAPS. We also have the Customer Due Diligence Repository platform on it called the MANSA, which is a platform for doing customer due diligence. So if you get in there, if those who are on that platform, anybody who wants to do business with them can go in there quickly and do know your customer reviews. Also on that gateway is the Africa Trade Exchange, which is a B2B and B2G platform, a portal where trade actually takes place. It's an e-commerce platform where trade actually takes place. But what is unique with this particular platform is that the trade that takes place there is always AfCFTA compliant. That is to say, the e-commerce platform has the latest data on the protocols, as well as the tariff concessions and also concession on services that have been negotiated and approved. So if you want to do business, if you go there, you will understand what currently exists, the concessions and all the benefits that the AfCFTA offers. With regard to industrialization and export development, through which we drive value creation, we also realize that we cannot do development in Africa just by trading, especially trading the same primary commodities. We realize that it must entail moving up the value chain. Afreximbank has aligned its financing to support industrialization and export development as a strategic pillar. This means funding projects that expand Africa's productive capacity in manufacturing and processed goods, the very products that will drive intra-African trade under the AfCFTA. In 2024, despite global headwinds, Afreximbank facilitated over 50 industrial projects across all 5 regions of Africa, resulting in an estimated $1.6 billion in manufactured exports, which accounted for almost 2% of exports, manufactured exports from the continent that year. These projects included the completion of 2 large industrial parks in West Africa, which have already generated more than 22,000 jobs. The near completion of a 60,000 barrel per day petroleum refinery in Southern Africa, which already been completed and just started operation a few days ago, and also which has created 3,000 jobs. We also were instrumental in ensuring that the Dangote refinery and the petrochemical complex got started quickly, investing at a point up to about $4 billion to get it off the ground. Such investments in energy and industrial infrastructure are foundational. They are equipping African economies to produce the goods that will be traded under the AfCFTA, from fertilizers to pharmaceuticals to many other light manufacturers. And in each of the industrial parks we are supporting, we are also building testing and inspection centers, creating quality infrastructure that Africa badly needs. And we are building this because we've also supported the harmonization of standards on the continent, helping to harmonize standards in accordance with the wishes of the AfCFTA Council of Ministers. Because we knew that one thing is to harmonize our standards, but if you do not have the quality infrastructure to test, it will be useless. That's why we created a company called Africa Quality Assurance Centers that is investing across the continent in developing quality assurance centers. Also, the work we are doing in industrialization is also through our investee company, Arise Integrated Industrial Platform. And the goal we have for that is to develop 100,000 hectares of industrial estate. Today, we are at about 20,000 hectares. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, we're supporting heavy industries. And particularly with the Dangote refinery, we've been able to see an uptick in intra-African trade in not only fertilizers, but also petroleum products. And with the work we're also doing with Dangote in Southern Africa, creating the infrastructure to enable exports from Walvis Bay to Zambia and Botswana, where we see an even bigger boost in intra-African trade in petroleum products. We've decided to work together to set up an African infrastructure company. That African infrastructure company will do the tank farms in Walvis Bay and the pipeline that will go all the way to Zambia and Botswana. And that company will also be an investor in the pipeline from Libya to Alexandria, moving crude from Tobruk to be refined in Egypt. And we are looking to do similar things so that we can begin to integrate our continent. Because the continent infrastructure was designed to support imports, not intra-regional trade. So unless we are able to change it, we will not trade. But the force to change it is coming because we've already created the industrial infrastructure and we are producing. So it is possible to then build those infrastructure, the pipelines, based on the credit of the companies that are solid, that are now producing. So we see a further acceleration of these kinds of things, not only from what the Afreximbank does. We believe that just like any business, when other banks see that it makes money, they will go there. There's also sector-specific initiatives, including examples from the automotive, clothing and textile, and pharmaceutical industries. We've taken a proactive role in incubating regional value chains in those critical sectors, identified as critical under the AfCFTA. A prime example, as the SG said, is automotive industry. We've worked with the Secretariat and the association to develop a strategy for the continent. And we are helping to ensure that the different countries adopt them. We recognize that no single African country alone has the market size to sustain a sizable automotive industry. And that's why the bank and partners developed a strategy to create a Pan-African automotive value chain, from component manufacturing in some countries to assembly in others, leveraging the tariff-free movement of auto parts under the AfCFTA. And Afreximbank has committed financing and guarantee facilities of $1 billion, as well as advisory support to make sure that this works. The strategy includes working with governments to develop supportive policies, financing the upgrade of production facilities, and fostering partnerships with global automakers to establish assembly plants in Africa. This approach is already bearing fruit. We have seen new vehicle assembly ventures launched in some of the countries in recent years. Similarly, the bank has its sights on pharmaceuticals and medical equipment, another sector prioritized under the AfCFTA. We are also working closely with our investee company to drive investments in textiles. I think SG mentioned the African Textile Renaissance Plan. This is a plan that is sized at $5 billion, through which we hope to build integrated textile plants in a number of countries. And in some of them, work has started. We did a pilot in Benin Republic, and those of you who are aware of that, the industrial park and that facility can confirm what is going on there. So the partnership we have with Arise is helping us to co-develop integrated ecosystems where automotive, clothing, textile, and pharmaceutical industries can cluster, benefiting from shared infrastructure, logistics platforms, and policy facilitation. This model reduces costs for manufacturers, accelerates technology transfer, and promotes regional production linkages. For example, the partnership is enabling the establishment of special economic zones where automotive component suppliers, textile producers, and pharmaceutical manufacturers work together and source collectively where necessary. Another trade facilitation initiative Afreximbank is developing together with the AfCFTA Secretariat is the African Collaborative Transit Guarantee Scheme, as well as others. To complement policy reforms, trade needs physical connectivity. Africa's road and rail networks, many of which were inherited from colonial times, often extend from inland mines to seaports, rather than linking neighboring states. Afreximbank has stepped in, working with the Secretariat and also the COMESA Secretariat to invest in and mobilize funding for connective infrastructure. A notable innovation is the African Collaborative Transit Guarantee Scheme, which we have developed to help facilitate the movement of goods across multiple borders under a single umbrella bond. Traditionally, a truck carrying goods across several countries might need to post a separate custom bond to enable it to cross each country, a costly and time-consuming process. Under the new Transit Guarantee Scheme, Afreximbank provides a single continent-wide transit bond, potentially guaranteeing around $2 billion worth of goods in transit annually on a revolving basis. We have already done transactions in the commercial region that's almost $1 billion. Additionally, Afreximbank has helped finance major transport projects such as the modernization of railways. For example, the bank has been a key financier of the Dar es Salaam Isaka Kigali Standard Gauge Railway project, which spans over 1,600 kilometers in its first phase and another 1,685 kilometers in the second phase. A rail corridor linking Tanzania, Rwanda, and potentially beyond. As of the end of 2024, substantial progress has been made with multiple sections totaling 722 kilometers completed. Once finished, this railway will dramatically improve landlocked countries' access to ports and neighboring countries, boosting intra-regional trade and also making it possible for people to move around more easily. Afreximbank involvement in such projects demonstrates a commitment not only to finance trade transactions, but to build the very highways, railways, and ports that enable trade to happen. In addition, Afreximbank has invested in critical infrastructure that enables trade and integration in sectors beyond transport. A prime example is the African Medical Center of Excellence in Abuja, Nigeria, which has been developed by Afreximbank in partnership with King's College Hospital, London. This flagship health infrastructure project is designed to provide world-class care in oncology, cardiology, and hematology, while reducing Africa's reliance on overseas medical treatment. Beyond its health mandate, the African Medical Center of Excellence also serves as a trade and industrialization project, stimulating Africa's pharmaceutical and medical equipment value chains by creating demand for locally manufactured drugs and supplies, attracting medical tourism within the continent, and building the human capital base for a modern knowledge economy. In this way, the African Medical Center of Excellence is both a health and trade facilitation initiative, aligned with Afreximbank's vision of supporting resilience on the continent. In addition to financing production and connectivity, Afreximbank is also reviving the model of export trading companies to help African producers reach wider markets. One of the problems we have on the continent is that when we produce, even we do not produce, we have raw materials, others produce the raw materials. Others trade our raw materials. They take them elsewhere to add value, they trade them back to us. So what we get in all of this is paltry royalties. So what the export trading company is aimed to do is to begin to change it. Because when you begin to trade your own goods, you direct them where you wish them to go. You can begin then to direct them to other African countries rather than to those who need them as raw materials. That would then make it possible for us to begin to process those raw materials we have on the continent. In many cases, the African SMEs and farmers also struggle to export because they cannot supply the volumes or consistently large quantities that buyers require. Export trading companies can aggregate products from many small suppliers, add value through packaging, marketing, quality control, and export at scale. Afreximbank's Export Trading Company initiative works with governments and in partnership with the AfCFTA and the private sector to establish and expand such entities with supportive regulatory framework. As I mentioned earlier, we've also launched the creation of Africa of testing and certification infrastructure across Africa to ensure that all African countries have the capacity for testing and certifying tradable products. Our pilot African Quality Assurance Center is already operational in Ogun State, Nigeria, and others are in progress in Benin Republic, Chad, Gabon. And advanced discussions are ongoing in Kenya and Zimbabwe. We are actually gradually approaching the day when all products testing will happen on the continent and no longer abroad. In addition, in collaboration with the African Regional Organization for Standardization, as I mentioned, we have done the harmonization of standards as required by the agreement. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, what I have outlined is a comprehensive ecosystem of support that Afreximbank has put in place. Financial instruments, platforms, and projects, all geared towards one overarching goal, making the AfCFTA work for Africa's development. The bank's approach is holistic because the challenge is multifaceted. We cannot go and tackle only one thing and expect results. We have to fight on all fronts. We need financing for traders, for industrialists, for governments, adjusting to new rules. We need infrastructure, both hard and soft. We need knowledge and networks. And also, we need regulatory interventions. Afreximbank, working closely with the AfCFTA Secretariat and the African Union, are making these possible. We're also working very, very closely with many governments. And it is because of the approach of the Secretariat that all these have been possible. It's worth noting that this massive agenda is being pursued even as Afreximbank continues to promote Africa's trade with the rest of the world and ensure resilience. So today, I would like to point out that if we want to know and understand the nexus between trade finance, and regional integration, we should look at what has happened since 5 years ago, the creation of the AfCFTA and the management that took control of it. Because as you can see, without the approach, Afreximbank will happen there in Cairo, but none of this will happen possible. But because we're working together, getting feedbacks, Afreximbank is able to bring financing where needed. And as Afreximbank implemented the financing instrument and we see regulatory hurdles, the AfCFTA Secretariat steps in to make sure that those hurdles are removed. That is the kind of development paradigm I think Africa should aspire to. We must look inwards. If we have demonstrated anything, it is that our destiny is in our hands. And when our institutions realize that, work together, things will begin to change. And I say all of this because for us at Afreximbank, we now recognize that the bank has become a systemically important pillar in Africa's economic architecture, not only advancing long-term integration, but also safeguarding the continent's trade stability in turbulent times. This dual role strengthens Africa's credibility and resilience. Partners see that Africa has its own solutions and institutions to rely on. And African nations gain confidence to engage in bold initiatives such as the AfCFTA, knowing that there is a financial institution to back it. So what we are doing is giving everybody confidence. And very soon, if we continue in this path, the days will be gone when Africa will be looked upon with scorn. So as we look ahead, one cannot overstate the significance of the moment we are in. The AfCFTA is often compared to the European Common Market of the 1950s or the Asian Free Trade Area of the 1990s. But in truth, it is even more groundbreaking, given Africa's diversity and the number of nations involved. If we succeed in fully implementing the AfCFTA, Africa will move from a collection of mostly atomistic economies to a single economic bloc with the potential to rival other major regions in dynamism. Before I conclude, let me emphasize that while institutions like Afreximbank are vital, they need to be complemented by the continued political will and leadership of African governments, the private sector, and the engagement of every African. And when I say every African, I mean global Africa. Africans wherever they may be. Because we see our role not only to look at Africa as a geography, because when Africans are insulted, they don't insult us because we come from the geographic Africa. They insult us because of our color. So wherever Africans are, we stand with them. Our collective commitment must be sustained and translated into action. Customs officials must diligently implement the new rules. Regulators must cooperate